Let us now discuss how can we solve this problem partition array according to given pivot. So we are given with nums array, an integer array, and we are given with pivot. Now we need to return a vector so that the array is partitioned by the vector. That means the partition, or sorry, the pivot should be in the middle, and the elements which are lesser than the pivot in the same order. Not like 3 is lesser than pivot, 5 is lesser than pivot, 9 is lesser than pivot. So I would push back like 3, 5 and then 9. No, not like this. It should be in the order how they are present in the nums array. So 9 will come first, 5 will come next, and then 3 will come next. Now, after one pivot, we have another pivot as 10. So, there is another pivot 10. Now, we have 12 greater than pivot and then 14 also greater than pivot. So, we will push back 12 and then 14. So, if you see, all the lesser elements are pushed back into the answer array. All the lesser elements are pushed back into answer array, and the number of times I got pivots are the number of times I got pivot or pushed back the times are pushed back into my answer array. Then the elements which are greater than pivot are pushed back into the answer at the last. So what I am doing here, first thing, let me create this answer array, and let me create an lesser array and my pivots count. Then pivots, let me also initialize it as vector, everything as vector. So everything is initialized as vector, and greater array is also initialized as vector. So for it in nums, that means I am iterating through this nums, and if it is lesser than my pivot value, then it is considered as the lesser element and need to be pushed back into the lesser array. So lesser dot push back it. Now if not, else if it is greater than pivot, then great dot push back it. That means it greater than pivot and need to be pushed back after the pivot elements. But what if it is equal? So if it is equal, pivots dot push back pivot. So if it is equal, I'll be pushing back this pivot, or simply you can maintain a count of pivots and make an array of pivots. So let us see how we can do that. So pivots or count is initialized to 0, and whenever I have pivot is equal to my it, that means this condition is true, then I would increment my count. So if you see, I would increment my count here. So after that, what I need to do is I will create a vector int named as pivots, and it would be of size of count, and everything is initialized as pivot. And let me do what I need to do with lesser and pivots and then great array. The first thing I need to do with lesser array is let me push back into this at the end answer dot end comma lesser dot begin lesser dot end. After that, answer dot insert answer dot end. Then pivots dot begin and then pivots dot end. And then after answer dot end pivot, sorry, great dot begin, great dot end. So after you will be returning answer, but imagine you doesn't know these things, like these, wait a second, this answer dot insert, these all things. So simply whenever you got a lesser thing, lesser array, so first thing I would iterate through my nums using it. Whenever I get lesser than my pivot value, lesser than my pivot value, I would push back into my answer. Then after here only else, if it is equal to pivot, it it is equal to it is equal to pivot, then what I need to do, I will increment my count here. So I will do one thing, iterate my nums, then increment or initialize my answer array, and whenever I get the lesser than the pivot, I will push back into my answer. Else if it is equal to pivot, then I will increment my count. So I also need to initialize count to 0. Now after that I have to I have to make these pivots into my answer array. So while count minus minus count is not a 0, I would push back pivots into my answer. After, I would also have to iterate through my nums again, it of nums, and if it is greater, I would push back into my answer. So after these iterations, 3 iterations, I will return my answer array. So this is how you solve this problem. So this is the code. I also give you the code of the second approach. You can check in the description, and if you like this video, do share it to your friends and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you.